Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. G'day everybody, welcome back to Voice of Gord. Quick intro here for you. Dropping this a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so I just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving. And I hope my truck driving friends that are listening to this manage to get home in one piece and enjoy some time with their families and a big feed and a nice sleep in and then back to it, eh? Been looking forward to bringing you guys this one for a long time. Good discussion here with my old buddy Nigel Frost, a gentleman I met when I traveled to New Zealand way back in 2002. I spent a year and a half down there, much of it driving logging trucks with the same company Nigel worked for, and we've been friends ever since. It's a good chat we have here. Nigel tells us all a little bit about his life and growing up in forestry and getting into trucking, and we talk about differences between trucking down there and trucking here and various experiences he's had. There's a little bit of a spicy one there involving the runaway logging truck that he piloted all the way to the bottom of a volcano and lived to tell the tale. But yeah, Nigel and I have been friends for a good long time, and I'm glad I finally got this organized. We're going to get him back to discuss yet more trucking and various stories, so we're looking forward to that. But in the meantime, thanks very much for listening. Got a few shows in the can here. I'll be releasing between now and Christmas and a few more into the new year. I know it was slow there for a little while, but I've done a few interviews and I have a few more booked, and looking forward to bringing you guys more great discussions and more great writing. So yeah, if you haven't already, go and subscribe to my Substack, autonomoustruckers.substack.com, and all of these podcasts and writing will go straight into your inbox. Especially if Nigel's shared this to any folks down in New Zealand and you're having a listen. Always happy to have more Kiwis on board. Go and subscribe and pass the show around to your mates. All right, well, without any further delay, let's get to Mr. Nigel Frost. G'day everybody, welcome back to another episode of Voice of Gord. I'm Gord and this is my voice. The other voice you're about to hear today is a very, very old friend of mine. He's got a bit of a funny accent. I hope if you ever meet him in real life, you get to make fun of it. He's overdue for a visit to North America, but the last time he was here was in 2005, trucking all over the countryside with me. Live from Tauranga, New Zealand. Welcome to the show, Mr. Nigel Frost.
Hello.
You've never been on a podcast before, Nigel.
No, I haven't. No. Or I should say kia ora.
Yeah, kia ora, bro. Morena.
Morena.
Well, it is down there. I as I understand it, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday in NZ.
Yes, 6:10, yeah.
Right. And you've slept in and missed the All Blacks playing in England.
Well, I'm watching it at the moment, recorded, but yeah, it was a bit earlier, a bit on a bit earlier, and I sort of get up early most days during the week, so I thought maybe Sunday I'll have a little bit of a lie-in.
Yeah, you gotta have that. You gotta have that when you're an overworked logging truck driver.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you know the result? Do you know who won yet?
No, I don't. No.
You haven't used the power of the internet to fast forward through the last 3 hours when you should have got your ass out of bed.
No, I haven't, mate. Currently leading, so it's a bonus.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so it's we're recording today, and I believe it's Saturday, November 2nd, 2024. You're in the antipodes, which means it's springtime down under. Yeah.
yes, yes. And it's Sunday the 3rd down here.
Oh, right. Yeah, you guys are closer to the date line than us. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, halfway through spring. Summer's on its way. So
Right. So for the North Americans and Germans and Poms and various others that listen to my show that may have never been to New Zealand, what's springtime in New Zealand look like?
this morning there's a bit of cloud around. Um, Generally warm, sometimes cool. Rain, lots of rain in particular places, which is always good for the farmers as it helps the grass grow.
Right.
But
It does rain a lot in New Zealand all year long though, basically, doesn't it?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh, apart from down south and the Hawke's Bay, Wairarapa, they get droughts during the summer. But where I am in the Bay of Plenty, it's sort of quite a bit of rain year round.
Right. The Bay of Plenty, for those who don't know, is up in the North Island. Um, there's a whole bunch of different communities along there: Tauranga, Mount Maunganui, Whakatane, Rotorua, getting down towards Taupo, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
good beaches.
Thames in the north, Waihi.
Yeah,
Good spot.
it's funny. I found this Kiwi writer on Substack, so that's the website that like hosts this podcast and my some of my writing stuff. And I found a guy from up the Coromandel, and he's
Oh,
oh yeah, he's a maniac. He what's he call himself? Obsidian Blackbird. And
oh,
yeah, he's like many other Kiwis. He left. He lives in America now. He lives in Florida, but he's had a pretty crazy life story, and pretty much every one of the articles he puts on Substack are another part of his weird life. He was a bit of a hippie and dope smoking, weirdo up the Coromandel, and then he moved to Auckland, and then he quit doing drugs and he turned into a goth, and then he moved to Vancouver, and he lived in Sydney for a spell, and I guess he became some kind of like roofing worker, like doing custom roofs on buildings. And now I
nice.
think and now I think he's some kind of business consultant and a gentleman farmer in Florida of all places. Got married to an American. I actually had him on the schedule to talk to him, but then he, typical weirdo fashion, he tells me at the last minute that he was going to Europe on holiday, and I think he's wandering around Turkey with his son right now. Maybe
Oh,
maybe they're doing an early visit to Gallipoli for Anzac Day or something. Who knows?
who knows? Could be. Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how we met is well, as some of my listeners know, well, this is a podcast hosted by a truck driver, and um New Zealand and Australia hold a certain position in the you know the minds of drivers around the world. Australia because of road trains, and New Zealand because you guys are just so pretty and got these really big logging trucks in the Kaingaroa off highway and all that, which is a place you and I have both spent some time. And yeah,
Yeah.
so 2002, I kept myself a 1 year work and holiday visa and roll into New Zealand. Spent a couple months farting around up in Auckland, worked for a couple different people. That didn't work out. Uh, moved to Taupo. A couple places there didn't want to have me on. And then finally, I waltzed into the offices of Rotorua Forest Haulage. And
That's
your,
right.
and your old man, Basil Frost, who was second in command over there at the time, hired me on the spot. And the rest, as they say, is history.
That's right. Yeah.
How's old
Yeah.
Baz doing anyway?
Yeah, he's not too bad. Thanks. Yeah, he's all right.
Was there not a little bit of a health scare here recently?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So he's sort of getting over that at the moment. So no, he's all right. He's living the retired life in a way.
Is he all done with Sargison?
Oh, yeah, he wants to go back to work. So, but not in the capacity that he was. So,
Right, yeah, because your dad your dad started as for Sargison. So when I say Sargy, that's the nickname of the guy this gentleman Colin Sargison, who started a logging truck company in New Zealand, which I think is now the largest private logging trucking outfit in the entire country. And
yeah,
your dad was one of his first employees.
yeah, he was. Yeah. I think there was two of them there, and Colin, it was Ray Freeman and Dad, and I think Dad was just started out as a driver, and Colin was sort of filling in here and there and doing other things that he had to do to grow his business, and then it sort of grew from there. Yeah, and I honestly couldn't tell you how many trucks they have now, be in the hundreds. Um, just gone from a one man band to this empire that they have now, which is pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I rolled in 2000 and early 2003, I think you guys were up at the time. We're up to about 80 trucks. Plus, you got all the like equipment down at the Kaingaroa log
Yeah.
processing yard and various hire equipment, rental stuff, other parts of the countryside. Um, but New Zealand is not immune to the same trends in business as the rest of the world. So there's lots of consolidation, and I think Sargy's one of them guys that got on that and started buying out his competitors. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, I think they did. Yeah, they purchased a transport company from just out of Whakatane, well over 20 years ago now. It was Watchorn Transport. They had a variety of vehicles, like they did bulk, like fertilizer and metal and sand and logs. I think they did a bit of timber and whatnot, but they're predominantly logs now.
So when you say metal, I just want people to know. So we're both speaking English, but there's like different phrases and idioms and words that mean different things. And I discovered this the hard way. So I roll into Auckland and I see these ads because back in the day you'd read the newspaper, you go in the classified ads when you're looking for a job, and there would be all these trucking companies saying they were hiring somebody to haul metal. So I ring this one fella up and said, "That's all I've ever done is hauled steel coils. I'm your man." And the guy says, "What? Metal? Like you dump it on the road?" So the Kiwi term, what we in North America we call gravel, you guys call it metal.
Yes, yeah, metal, yeah, roading metal, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was them. Yeah, they purchased them, and I think they've got still got a couple of bulk trucks, or tippers that do fertilizer and gravel. Uh, Probably about 10 years ago or so, they purchased another company from Thames, which is up the Coromandel coast. Trevor Masters Limited, they had about a dozen or so logging trucks. So they purchased them, bought Trevor out. He retired up in the Coromandel somewhere. And I think they're about 20 now. And it must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, they purchased another company from Rotorua in the Waikato. And they do freight, a lot of bagged fertilizer and other things and timber.
like
They
in
got
curt
bulk
like in curtain side trailers.
siders and bulk trucks and a couple of skellies that cart containers around and so
Right.
forth.
All
So yeah,
right.
they got a bit going on.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to tell people about New Zealand, and I don't know if this is still the case. I think it is. Maybe Sargi's changed his thing. I don't know. Um, like when I went to work for your dad in Sargison, they had like a couple of DAFs and Fodens and Scanias, and so they got these trucks from like Korea and Japan and Sweden and all over the show. Now, primarily Sargison was known for the Western Stars and Kenworths and stuff, right?
Yep.
But they did have these oddball European and Asian trucks. And you saw a lot of that in New Zealand, eh? Like, there's that sort of attitude of give anything a go,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. They
Um,
mainly got Scania, Def, and Kenworth now.
right.
Yeah. Oh, and the odd Western Star, but yeah, they've got a mixture of equipment.
Yeah. There was this one fella that worked for you guys. I don't know if he's retired or not now. Maybe his name was Buck. I can't remember. He had a Western Star and it towed one of them little 4-axle B trains. And the Western Stars that Sargison had all had the sort of, Western Star used to do this thing where they would have a tag on the door that would say custom manufactured for whatever, because Western Star would build their trucks from the frame up. It was no assembly line. They weren't just like stamping them out. Like Western Star built you a truck.
Mm.
There it is on stands, put the frame rails down, build it exactly as you want it. And at that time, I believe Western Star was the only North American truck manufacturer that would build it for you right-hand drive, so that you guys wouldn't have to flip them around when they showed up off the boat.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that, and I thought they were decent enough trucks.
They were
Um,
pretty good.
yeah, Western Star in North America, I don't know about. I think you guys are probably getting them from the like ranch operation in Australia, maybe.
I think so. That um, they come in now. There's by the dozen, so they're probably not really as custom made as what they used to be.
Right.
So you just buy one off the lot like you would buy a pickup truck or a car or something.
Yeah,
Probably.
this is what we got. Like it or leave it. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, given that like, you know, New Zealand's an interesting place, right? Like a pretty wide range of topography, pretty hilly, pretty mountainous in many places, in most of the country actually. And I
Big
don't know.
flats as well. Big flat plains as well.
Yeah, down the South Island and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dug those trucks, and I liked the fact, and Western Star kind of fell off the wagon here too, right? Like they closed the plant in Canada, they moved it to Oregon, they got bought by Freightliner, who got bought by Daimler Benz, and now they've got some factory in South Carolina, and I don't know, they're just yeah,
I
yeah, they're not what they used to be, bro.
no, no.
Oh. So have
Oh,
you been so speaking of like Canadian logging trucks, have you been following this guy in Canada? I don't know how much time you spend online or social media, probably not because you're busy working, but um there's this guy named Chase Barber. He's been on my show a couple times, and he's got this company in British Columbia called Edison Motors.
yes, I know. Yes, I have. Yeah, I listened to one of your podcasts talking to him. Yeah.
Apparently, he's got a guy in New Zealand that wants to buy one of his trucks.
Wow. Was that right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So if you ever see one down there, I'm gonna have Chase on again. He said he'd come back on because there's been a lot of developments. He's been very busy. He finally started towing loads around with one of them. He put a video on YouTube here a few weeks back, and he had a fully loaded B train load of logs. 140,000 pounds, and 63 ton down under.
Did the math. Yep.
He went on tour. He went to Europe here recently, and I think he went to some truck show in the UK. And then I think Scania took him to Sweden and like gave him a tour around their plant or something. I don't know if he's got some business deal, something on the side with Scania happening. Maybe I don't know. I'm gonna get him on the show and find out. But
they're building electric trucks now too, aren't they? Or developing them or something, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? The thing I like about uh Chase is his he understands something about like aesthetics and like looks,
Yeah.
right? You see this fucking Tesla truck that Elon Musk is building. It's just uglier than sin. It looks like a toilet on wheels. It's got a big
Yeah.
old. It just looks like an upside down toilet. That's the only way I can describe it. And you look inside the cab. It's all screens, and like it's only one seat. Chase's trucks too. He wants to start selling the ones with the seat in the middle, which I think is a little bit weird. But whatever. It's just like the point being is that like Chase will retrofit your truck. One of his plans is that like, oh, I've got this old 1988 Peterbilt sitting out in the barn. Like what he wants to do is put his diesel electric hybrid system on existing trucks. So like
Yeah.
if you want to upgrade, he'll do that for you. He's building an upgrade package for pickups, like what you guys call utes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's going to be interesting. I met a guy at the Mid America Trucking Show from Texas who's already signed up with them to be like a franchise thing down around Dallas Fort Worth or something. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just interesting. But I mean, Chase is a logger. Like he comes from logging in BC, and one of the so in the world of trucking, there's kind of like a hierarchy, of like people that actually know what the hell they're doing. And
Yeah.
I think logging truck drivers for the most part are at the top of that.
Yeah. Well, you sort of need to be on your toes around here. I know that for sure.
Right. So you didn't originally start driving logging trucks, right? Like you actually worked on a logging crew for a while.
I did. I did. I left school and funny, I left school and went cutting scrub and spraying weed control around pine trees when I was, how old was I? 16. And I didn't really like that. So I got myself a job trimming pine trees, or felled trees behind a fella buncher. And also at the time, I was also working on Sundays in the workshop at RFH, like greasing trucks and doing odd jobs. And then my brother Malcolm and I, after I'd finished that, would sweep and scrub the floor on the workshop. So it sort of took up most of my Sundays. But yeah, anyway, then I started trimming these felled trees, and then got sick of that. It was pretty monotonous. It's with the chainsaw. I got another job cutting up on a landing, and then I got laid off. And then I got myself with help from my dad, got a job with a logging crew with a log hauler, which I think they called yarders over there. And I started working in the forestry with that, cutting up on the landing and breaking out. And so I worked in forestry for about 8 years, and then I got my A into G and got my class 2, which is for a little truck on the Firestone call out truck at the time, and then progressed from there.
So when you say Firestone call out truck, you mean like roadside service, they would say in America. You went out and helped fix guys change their tires.
No, I just used their truck to get my license on.
Right. Well, one of the like in America, basically nobody changes their own tires anymore. In Australia, you kind of have to because you're out in the outback and it's too far for anyone to come rescue your sorry ass. But I guess in New Zealand, it's a bit smaller. You're, not too far from help.
No, there's Firestone, you Carter's tires or wherever they got people everywhere. They can come and help you out. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I learned about when I was working in the Kangaroa is hose doctors. These hydraulic guys that like basically roll up and change the hydraulic lines on equipment out in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. There's heaps of them around. There's a few of them around. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was I can't remember the name of the crew. This was when I was doing the I was still doing the afternoon shift thing at RFH, right? Where I'd come in and wherever they needed me to go, I just went. They'd give me a ring around 1 or 2 in the afternoon and hop in the ute, go here, go there, relieve whoever. And one of the stems unit, maybe it was old Aussie Bob.
Oh, yeah,
He had that old Gulf transport truck from the Northern Territory that they'd converted to hauling logs.
that's right. That Kenworth, that T950.
Yeah. I put a couple hours in on that bad boy.
So did I, yeah. It
Yeah,
was,
that was a good old truck.
yeah.
Um, anyway, I was on an afternoon shift and I rolled into this crew and the loader shat itself and blew a pretty big hydraulic line. So we had to stand around for a bit, and then the hose doctor rolls up, and the hose doctor guy had his dog with him in his ute. So the dog had a high vis safety vest that he had wrapped around his dog. In full compliance. Even the dogs must be in full compliance.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
did you see? So there's the internet's a wonderful thing. So it's coming alive this morning here in America. Is there's this story about a guy here in New York State. Actually, he only lives about an hour drive away from me, and
mhm.
he adopted this baby squirrel. So this dude who lives near me was visiting his mom. I don't know, a few months ago, a year ago, something like that. And some squirrel got run over in the street in New York City, killed the squirrel mom, and there's these babies. So this guy takes one of these squirrels home and raises it as his own because he's already got some kind of animal rescue. Him and his wife run. Yeah. So anyway, the Department of Environmental Conservation here went and raided this fella's house
Hmm.
and took his squirrel, which I guess had become a social media sensation because he like dressed it up in costumes and wore funny hats and all that. And
Oh, yeah.
now the squirrel has become a political rallying cry. It's just it's America, man. This place is amazing. Um, yeah. So yeah, so you did a bunch of as you call it in the business, silviculture, thinning
Yes.
trees, doing all that stuff. Then you move on to running a swing yarder, which
That's the
remind
tower
yeah,
yarder. Yeah.
yes, that might be unless you're in the logging business, especially in the mountains, you might not know what that equipment is. Um,
I
I
was, it's kind of funny. I think I was roughly about 22 at the time. So I was operating these big tower yarders, and a contractor in Rotorua bought a brand new Thunderbird TTY 6170 and didn't have an operator for it. So he approached me and went and had a yak with them. And anyway, I started working for him. So I'm probably one of the very few people in New Zealand, at least, to have gotten a brand new yarder. And at the age of 22,
That's a big
had this
responsibility.
had this repair $1.6 million machine to look after. So yeah, but it was kind of funny because at the time used to fill out a sheet of paper on how many stems and pieces of pulp that would pull up the hill, and I had a multicolored pen, so I started drawing logging trucks and so forth on these sheets of paper. And Kerry, who I worked for, he said to me one day, "What the fuck are you doing here? You just want to go and drive trucks. Why don't you just go and drive trucks?" So I thought about it. I thought, bugger it, I'll go and do it. This is what I always wanted to do. And so therefore, that's when I got my class 2 license, and subsequently my 4 and then 5. And here I am.
Right. So speaking of 2, 4, and 5, something that's a bit of a issue here in America is, and in Canada, actually, it's becoming a very big issue in Canada, is the utter lack of qualifications of truck drivers now. There's no what you might call a graduated licensing system.
Oh
So
yeah.
in New Zealand, tell me if my information is out of date, but in New Zealand, you have to do 1 year of driving a little truck before you can even apply to drive like a class five.
Yes, that's correct. I It's been a while. I think you can speed up the process if you go through a driving course at a polytech or something. And but generally, yeah, you have your class two, you drive around in a little truck for a year, and then you can qualify to get your class three, which is like a little truck towing a trailer of up to, I think, about 10 ton gross. But you can skip that class three and just do your class four, which is, for example, a logging truck with a trailer up size. And then when you have done a year with that, you can apply for your class five, which covers your class three. So generally, I think most people would just skip the class three, go from 2 to 4, and then 4 to 5. Truck and trailer, B train, whatever.
Right. Yeah, and I think they've got something similar in Australia where you're supposed to do 1 year on what they call a rigid,
Yeah.
light, medium, or heavy rigid, and then you can move on to an HC heavy combination, which is one trailer, and then your MC after that. And there's all these stages. They don't have anything like that here in America or Canada. If you want, you can go to some dodgy ass truck driving school, spend 2 weeks, and then they turn you loose with your class A or class one or whatever they call it, CDL here in the US. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so one of the I tell people often, whatever, and a lot of people don't listen to me. They think I'm a loudmouth, but it's true. Is that I believe that truckers from New Zealand are the most technically proficient drivers in the world, and I say that because of the terrain and because of the graduated licensing system that sort of imposes, it's not recognized as such, an apprenticeship program, right? Like you basically have to spend all this time driving smaller trucks first. And, and New Zealand has got all these mountains and hills and 25K corners, and it's mostly 2-lane road. I mean, there's motorways around Auckland and Hamilton and Cambridge and Christchurch and all that. But for the most part, you're 2-lane skinny road everywhere you go,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and they're narrow and they're windy, and you have to be able to get every bit of performance out of your truck in order to navigate the geography there, which I think just naturally builds better truckers than anywhere else.
Yeah. Probably does. Yeah.
From a maybe not like from a business sense or whatever, but like a technical operational capability perspective, keep the just the system in New Zealand plus the geography makes better truckers, and
Yeah.
I stand by that. You guys are the best.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we are in a way.
Not trying to like light you up or anything, but just it is what it is. You'll get some of that. You'll get some of that on the West Coast in America and Canada.
Yeah.
Logging truck drivers in BC and Oregon and Washington and whatnot. They will have a similar level of technical proficiency and ability to get the most out of their machines. When I went down there, I was young and stupid. Now I'm just old, but I'm still stupid. um, it was like going back to school, man. Because I remember when you came over. So here's more to our story as friends.
Yeah.
I do a year and a bit down there, worked for Sargison. I was seeing that girl Bernie, and then we like traveled around for a bit, and then I took off, went home. You came to Canada in 2005, spent a year trucking with me.
That's right. Yeah. I did. Yeah.
Yep. What was it? You saw 37 states and 7 provinces or something?
Yeah. It was something like that. A few of those states are in the dark, though, to memory.
Yeah, well,
Nebraska and Kansas, I think, definitely saw those two in the dark.
you mean you were driving at night? You haven't forgotten them.
No, I haven't forgotten them. No, I was driving at night. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you didn't miss much. Nebraska and Kansas are pretty flat.
Yeah, I think it was Nebraska. I was with you when we were doing that one of those team missions, and Kansas. What was I doing down there? I can't quite remember now.
Yeah. But anyway, you came over here. You came over here and you had a good crack at it. And
Mm,
that's almost 20 years ago now. That was 2005.
yeah, yeah. Jeez, time's flying.
Yeah. But one of the things you said to me after you'd been here for a little while, I'll never forget this, Nige. I can't remember where we were, but you did say it. You said, I don't know how these North American truckies do it. You just get out on the interstate, set the cruise control, and now you don't have to do anything. Like it's boring.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
You don't have to really do very much.
no, no. And all. Yeah, no, you don't. You just yeah. But saying that, like come to think of it, there's you got traffic around you pretty much day and night, especially out east. I noticed. I think I only had when driving in the US, I think I only had my headlights on a high beam roughly for about 30 seconds and you had to dip them again. So I think I just used to drive around with my lights on, dip. I still do that today for some reason. And then, yeah, probably just the traffic there would be the major thing. We get that here now too, but
Yeah, but like, so, all right. So you're now in Tauranga.
yeah,
So since leaving North America, you went home. You're now married to a lovely lady named Karen, who I'm hoping is gonna pop into the video here in a minute and say good day.
yeah, she might do. Oh, we're
Uh,
not married. Might as well be, but we're not married.
okay, pardon my
That's,
technical error.
no, that's all right.
You've been a couple now for how long?
Oh, I think we got together not long after I got back from Canada, which is 2000, late 2006. So 18 years, I think we've been together now.
Wow. And
Yeah,
you have a little daughter named Paige who's how old?
nine and a half. Nine and a
Right.
half. Yeah.
Right. And you've left Rotorua and you live in Tauranga.
Yep.
And you are what they say in New Zealand is an owner driver. The term here in North America is owner operator, but same, not really different.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
And
Yep.
you're still hauling logs and you're still working for Rotorua Forest Haulage, but it's your own truck.
Yep. Painted fleet colors. Yeah. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
So you're not going into Auckland very often. You're not going into Wellington or anywhere there might be tons of traffic.
No, no. Tons of traffic around Tauranga nowadays. It's not too bad, really, but still have to have your wits about you, especially between Waihi and Tauranga.
Have they
It's
still
quite
got those like I remember when you come in on is it New Zealand Highway 2 when you come into the north end of Tauranga there was like three or four roundabouts all in a row as you're coming into the north end of town.
yeah, they're still there. Yep. And there's more further out. Now, there's two within 10 Ks of each other. No, three, sorry, and within 10 K of each other near Caticat. Yeah. So sort of trying to because State Highway 2 is so busy. They sort of put those roundabouts in on the end at the end of roads where there's a few houses down there just to try and make it safer for vehicles to come in and out of. But for some ludicrous reason, NZTA put in the cheese cutter barriers in the middle of the road to also block off driveways that are onto State Highway 2. So
All
they
right,
hit
what do you mean by a cheese cutter barrier? Can you explain what this is?
uh, cheese cutter barrier is a nickname I think motorcyclists have given them. So you got like plastic strips or posts sort of cemented into the middle of the road, and between there they have probably about an inch diameter steel cable, and that's the barrier. So the idea being a vehicle, if a car or a truck hits it, it'll sort of stop it instead of deflecting it off.
Oh, like
You
so
get what
you
I
say deflecting it like a Jersey barrier, like one of those concrete barriers.
Yeah. So it'll sort of absorb the vehicle and the vehicle should be able to drive out of it and carry on or pull over if it's badly damaged. So obviously you got 3 or 4 cables in the height of these things, and if you hit those with a motorcycle, not going to be very pretty, is it?
No, it doesn't sound like it.
No, so they'll put these barriers in on the edge of the road in the middle. So if there's a breakdown, a truck breaks down, for example, traffic won't be able to get through. And if emergency services need to get to a certain side of the road, they'll have to travel 2.5 km in one instance to a roundabout to turn around to come back.
Right.
You know, it could take up to, say, 5 minutes in traffic. And 5 minutes is 5 minutes when someone is in need of help, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not good when you're bleeding out.
No. So they've put them in for some reason, lowered the speed limit to 80 km an hour.
Along those stretches?
Along those stretches, yeah. So the trouble is with around here, there's probably a lot of elderly around, and they'll get on that road and they'll do 60 km an hour and have a mile of traffic behind them. And because I've been going up and down that road for such a long time, I've learned to live with it and I'm patient around it. But there are a lot of people around that aren't patient. So
yeah. Well, one of the keys. So Nigel, you know this. I'm not saying anything you don't know. This is for the benefit of any young fellas that might be listening to this show. I got a couple of young, newer truckies that do listen to this.
Yeah.
Is the benefit of patience. Right? No load is that important that you need to get it there on some other idiot's conception of time. Exactly. No load is that important that you need to sacrifice, the possibility that you might damage your own rig or hurt someone or even if it's not your fault, right? Like you could be doing everything right, but like if you're impatient with the people around you and you're not driving for them, you're putting yourself at risk to this like concept of time that's like basically fake. Just get there, yeah, okay. Oh man, this 80-year-old old codger cow cocky that doesn't, he's just tootling along. Oh well, what do you do? Just
That's right.
play the tunes a little bit louder and enjoy it, like there's nothing you can do about it. You got to share the road with these folks. You have to drive for everybody else. This is the key, you and I have fairly good records. I mean, only trouble I think we've ever had has been in off-highway situations. But
yeah,
is that topic too testy for the public?
No. What do you need to know?
So yeah, you survived a pretty horrific crash.
I did. I had a runaway on a off-highway logging truck with full length stems on it.
When you say full length stems, you mean tree length, and the payload was 65 ton or better.
70 ton, I think I had on. So it would have been about 95 to 100 ton on it.
And that's metric tons. That's 95,000 kgs fully loaded coming down the backside of a volcano.
Pretty much. Well, yeah. Up Tauranga, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a runaway I think I was coming down this hill. Now, this is in the middle of the night, so it's dark. Coming down a hill, I was like, I'm going a little bit quick here. So I put my foot on the brake to slow down, so I could slow it down enough to drop another gear. Now, this was an old Western Star, Canadian one, with a 3406B, I think it was, or C, cat engine in it with a brake saver. So we had a bit of stopping capability there. So I put my foot on the brake, and shit, there's nothing there. And this is the first time I touched the foot brake coming down the first section of this downhill. Then I went to, I suppose, panic kicked in a little bit. So I went to chop it down a gear, and then as soon as it hit neutral, all the low air buzzers came off and went off, and the thing just took off. So here I am at 95 odd ton in the middle of the night, screaming down this hill. And literally, when I mean screaming, I was literally screaming uh, for my mother,
Yeah.
as a lot of people probably would at that point. And it's kind of funny just getting onto that subject. I was talking to one of the, and he's retired now, mechanic at Rotorua Forest Haulage after my accident. And he was a Vietnam veteran. He was in Vietnam with the New Zealand Army. And I was telling him this, and he started to have tears streaming down his eyes because he was reliving a situation they had in Vietnam when they were attacked in the middle of the night in their fire base by the Viet Cong. And he was telling me these young 19, 20-year-old men just huddling, screaming, shitting themselves for their mothers. And I was telling him, this is because you don't know what's going to happen. So anyway,
the only difference I would say between and no offense to this veteran, and we could go off about some New Zealand history as a side tangent to this, but like they could have shot back. You are a prisoner in a 7-axle rolling 95-ton runaway train with no capacity to fight it whatsoever. There's a difference there.
No. So, yeah, I had all these things going through my head at the time when it took off. Do I jump? But then there's a gentleman by the name of Willie Beatty a few years before me.
I remember Willie. I met him. Yep.
Yeah. He had the similar situation in a double. So that's a 2-trailer off-highway logging truck, probably 150 ton all up. Same situation, a runaway. At the time I thought he had jumped out, and the truck rolled and crushed him, and he lost both his legs below the knee. But that wasn't the case. He was in an old, I think it was a P6 Pacific, and he actually got thrown out the passenger door, he told me later. So I wasn't going to jump, as they said, because in fear of getting run over. So I thought I'd ride it out. And I knew if I got to the bottom of this hill, there was a sweeping 55-kilometer K corner, and it flattened out to a certain extent. If I can get around there, it'll flatten out. And all I have to do is explain something that happened. But as it turns out, come around that corner, I don't know how fast I was going because the speedo in the old Star didn't work. So all I remember was going off the road and waking up looking at the ceiling of a crushed cab of a Western Star. And I was like, shit, I got to get out of here. And I tried the team talk to get hold of someone, and that didn't work, obviously. And so I'm sitting there sort of freeing myself up, and then all of a sudden there's like a woof down by the foot pedals, I think, and the woof being the flame igniting. So like, shit, I got to get out of here. So sort of wrenched myself out the back window. Unfortunately for me, the cab guard had been smashed off by the load.
And when Nigel says cab guard, the North American lingo is headache rack.
Yeah. So fortunately that had been smashed off, so I was able to pull myself out through the back window, but in doing that, my jersey got stuck, and I was trying to free it because it was a new jersey and it cost a lot of money at the time.
New Jersey. When he says Jersey, he doesn't mean the state. He means a hoodie, a fucking sweater.
Yeah. Sorry. And,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm having to like translate all this Kiwi for other people.
That's all right. I'm trying to translate it too, but I can't.
Yeah. No, Nigel, you're being a good sport, man. This is a hard memory to have to rehash for people. Keep going.
That's all right. Yeah. So as I got myself out, the flames engulfed the cab and caught my cotton corduroy trousers on fire, so to speak. And then so I got out of this thing and got out of this thing and kicked my trousers off, my boots and my woolen socks. And this is in April, end of April. So we're sort of nearly at winter. So it was pretty cold. And I just sort of sat on the side of the road by this burning truck in the middle of the night, just waiting for another logging truck to turn up and help me out.
But the burning trousers had done their damage, though.
They had done their damage, yeah. So anyway, I'm sitting on the side of the road and I hear this lemon put, put, put down the road, and this off-highway single turns up with a chap by the name of Dane driving it, and he stops. And he didn't see me, and I was just about to bang on the door, and he hooked it into reverse, and I sort of chuckle about this a bit. He'd almost run me over. So,
oh man!
But I banged on the door, and he stopped, and I've never seen a Māori bloke look so white. Darker skin than us.
I might have to delete this. That might be considered racist.
No, not in my book. He got out and he just says, "Holy fuck, are you all right?" He says, "Bro, I need some help." So he got hold of dispatch at the time, and the fire engine turned up after about an hour. And it was quite reassuring, because in that fire truck was a rugby mate of mine. So he come and sort of helped me out, and they wrapped my legs in plastic, like plastic wrap, and covered them in water. And the ambulance finally showed up. They got lost because I was on a Tauranga road, which was a forestry road. The ambulance got dispatched to Tauranga Road in a town called Kawerau, which was nearby.
That's where you were hauling the logs to.
Where I was hauling the logs to. And the ambulance apparently got hold of their dispatcher and said, there's no burning logging truck on Tauranga Road. What are you about to say? Well, we're in Kawerau Township. I said, no, it's a forestry road called Tauranga Road that runs behind Kawerau Township. Oh. So then the ambulance got to the end of this road, and they were checking the map. While they were checking the map, they had the ambulance with the handbrake on. And when they found where they needed to go, the handbrake wouldn't release. So they had to get the ambulance from Edgecombe, which is another 20 minutes away. So finally the ambulance got there. And by this time, I'm shaking like a leaf because the adrenaline has just kicked in. And he gets there and he's mucking around, trying to put a line in my arm to give me some antibiotics. And by this stage, my dad had turned up, because his job at the time was looked after the accidents.
He was basically the safety and human resources guy.
Yeah, at Rotorua Forest Haulage. So he turns up, and at this time I was in the back of the ambulance, and he just, I'll never forget this. He just looked at me, he had his hands in his pockets. He just said, "Are you all right, boy?" I got up all right.
Oh, man.
Shrugged his shoulders and he walked away. But
that's merely to begin a journey of another several months and years of getting your legs put back together.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because you got third-degree burns to your legs, right?
I did, yes. Full grafting, skin grafts, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So funnily, one of the first things he did was after he came and seen how I was went to the trailer and put his hands on the hubs. Because generally when you have a runaway, your brakes are going to overheat, aren't they? But my brakes were stone cold, and he sort of thought to himself, then he hasn't cooked the brakes, something else has gone wrong. So
Well, there was a couple of mechanical failures as far as my memory of first hearing about this story, because I mean, I was there. I mean, I
yeah,
was in New Zealand. I was not at the scene, but when I heard about it from you afterwards, you know,
we'd known
uh
each other since then too, eh?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, no, because like I had driven that truck with you. You had like
that's
trained me on the stems a little bit. Um,
yeah,
that tractor lost all its air, and then the either the engine brake or the brake saver stalled the motor out, which is why you couldn't get it back into gear when you tried to drop it. So you had two mechanical failures at the worst possible time. So like
yeah.
this is not your fault. This is the
Something's gone wrong.
something's
Yeah,
gone wrong on two fronts. So now you have no engine control of the truck and you have no brake control of the truck whatsoever. This is why I'm saying you're just riding it. There's nothing you can do. You can't shoot back.
no, no, you can't. So yeah, it was, yeah. Um, so where was I? I suppose there's a few things that came out of that accident. They stopped long stemming from up the back of Tauranga Forest.
Really?
Yep, they stopped long stemming, and they changed the maxi pots or the brake pots on those stem units. At the time, I think they're only running 20/40 brake pots, and now they're all. So that wasn't even even if the truck was parked on that grade of hill with the park brake on, it would still creep forward. So they put the bigger brake pots on those units to stop that. So there is a chance of them stopping with that weight, if you get what I mean.
Yep.
They changed that. So now all the off highway run the bigger brake pots. And this is at the time. I don't know anything about what goes on out there now. And they put in a couple of runaway ramps on that hill as well.
Really?
If it happened again, you can just go off the road, and because it's all pumice down there, and just sink into the pumice.
Right.
Fortunately, no one else has had to. No one has, as far as I'm aware, has had to use those, which is good.
Right.
It's still carting off highway loads out of there though at 70 ton with sawn logs, cut logs. But
Right.
yeah,
So, Ace, speaking of all this logs and everything, logging is like a sort of niche business in trucking, right? Like there's lots of people that haul freight. I've got people that listen to this show that one of my really good friends, this guy, if you ever come back to America, I got to introduce you to this fellow. His name's Chris. He's from Kentucky and he hauls what you call a pneumatic bulker. So it's this trailer. It kind of looks like a tanker, but it's not. And there's a big vacuum slash
uh,
blower that runs off the PTO in his truck. And he hauls all kinds of weird stuff, but it's all dry bulk
yeah,
product.
yeah,
And he's just a great dude. And then there's all sorts of products, but like logging is its own thing. Logging trucking, I believe, is separate from all other trucking because the equipment gets the shit beaten out of it. You have to have a different level of skill with the operators. Weights are high. It's just a different world, eh? And
mm,
over and above New Zealand being a totally different universe into itself, like New Zealand logging is another thing. And but the logging part of it, like describe for everybody listening to this, what kind of trees New Zealand harvests, maybe a little bit of the history of the New Zealand forestry industry, the difference between native and all these imported exotics that you guys haul around, and how all of that works, if you don't mind.
yeah. Well, I could probably go back probably to, I think it was roughly the end of the First World War. So New Zealand had a lot of veterans come back from the war. They had not much going on, but there was a place just south of Rotorua is where I'm from. It's called the Kaingaroa Plain. Basically a pumice base, which was created by the eruption of Mount Topor, or Lake Topor, probably recorded by Romans, so it must have been at least 2,000 years ago. And it was just basically covered in scrub. So what they did,
when you say recorded by Romans, like the Romans noticed a difference in the atmosphere because of this volcanic eruption.
They did, and I think the Chinese did as well. And it was recorded, and through dating and everything, they're pretty sure that was from Topor. So it created this huge plain. It was, at the time, nothing could grow on. It was just covered in scrub. So they started, after the First World War, they had all these men with no employment. So the government said, well, why don't we do something with this land? And they pretty much cleared the scrub at a place called Waitapu, which is sort of at the northern end of the plain. And they planted all these different types of trees, Pinus radiata from California, Douglas fir, Corsican pine, and a few others. And through that, they discovered that the radiata was growing the quickest and the best. So therefore, they started clearing more and more of the scrub and planting more of this radiata pine. And then then the Second World War came along, and after that there was more men that needed employment, so more land was cleared. And come the early 1950s, Kaingaroa was ready to start harvesting, which they did. Well, the bulk of it did. So that's sort of how that started, and they put in the infrastructure for off-highway logging trucks. Wasn't in the early mid-60s, I think. The Kaingaroa Logging Company imported roughly, I think it was around 15, 16 Pacifics from Canada to haul their big trailers. It was quite a big deal then, because it was a big deal for Pacific to supply all these trucks. And that's sort of how Kaingaroa started. And also a lot of pine was started getting planted around different areas by the government, like Whangamata and the Coromandel, and further up around Whangapoa, which is near Whitianga, and various other locations in the Hawke's Bay, Gisborne, Northland, South.
This tree growing program, which started in what is now the Kaingaroa, spread throughout the rest of the country, be it government blocks or farmers, whoever, just planting trees, because you guys do farmer boxes too, right?
Yeah, woodlots, we call them. Yeah,
right.
I do a lot of woodlots myself. Yeah,
all right,
it's all right. Yeah, it's just taken off, and because our native takes so long to grow, it's sort of not a viable option for forestry.
So yeah, where I live in upstate New York, most of the logging is hardwood. Not all of it, but most of it. In the Appalachian Mountains on the east side of America, and then a little bit up into Canada, you get your maple trees and stuff. You know, Canada's got the maple leaf flag, which is kind of a fake and gay replacement for the red ensign, but that's a political discussion for another time, another podcast maybe. But anyway, hardwood and softwood, coniferous trees versus deciduous trees. Where I live, I did some logging here. I got laid off last year, but there's lots of hardwood mills around here. New Zealand's hardwood basically all got clear cut by the English not too long after they showed up and sort of took the place over. Do I have that correct?
Over time of over 100 years, a lot of it was clear felled. Yeah,
right. But the point being is that the English show up, and New Zealand has got all of this exotic hardwood, you know, totara and rimu and all this beautiful wood. And what's the percentage of that native hardwood forest that's left today?
Oh, not much.
Isn't it like 15%? Maybe 20 tops?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Something like that. So a lot of it was cleared for farmland. I'm not sure people listening to this podcast, like New Zealanders, built on agriculture. So I think at one point there in the 70s and 80s, we had something like 50 million sheep and only 3 million people. And I think nowadays we have something like a herd of 4 million dairy cows.
Yeah,
And
I remember hearing about that ratio, right? It was like 17 sheep to every human in New Zealand.
something like that. And we got that climate for growing grass, like temperate, good rainfall.
Doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold.
No. Oh, down south it does, but yeah. So yeah, but most of our native timber has been cut down and turned into farmland, and now some of it's gone back into trees, pine trees, unfortunately. But there's also at the moment we're still starting to plant a bit more native around the place, so bringing some of it back. I was just going to say, New Zealand was one of the most heavily deforested nations in the modern world, but it was also one of the heaviestly reforested nations in the modern world. Cut down the native, unfortunately, and replaced it with pine.
Right. You mentioned that they are trying to replant some of the native stuff. Is that like a mass project in the same way that the planting of these exotic harvestable pine species is, or is this like a sort of boutique thing just around the edges?
Probably more of a boutique thing. Government's trying to encourage a lot of farmers to plant natives again, like around waterways, to suck up the nitrogen out of the soil before it hits the waterways.
Right. I remember. So, hey, let's back up a second. Your brother went to uni for a bit, and I remember having a conversation with Malcolm. G'day, Malcolm and Donna. How's it going? I remember him telling me once that like one of his projects in uni was talking about these buffer zones where
Riparians, yeah.
you plant things between the field and the runoff before, so that when rainwater comes through, the plants, the bushes, the whatever you plant, suck stuff up before it gets into the creek.
Yes, that's doing a lot of that now and using natives for it, like a lot of flaxes and tea tree and manuka and so forth.
Right. Did you guys ever get rid of all the gorse?
No, 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 no. Unfortunately,
Was that an impossible task?
some places I think so. Yeah, yeah.
So for people who don't know, gorse is this like bush kind of, it's not a tree and it's not really like grass. It's this like bush thing with
Shrub.
these like, yeah, like a shrub, like it's got a yellow flower, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah, imported by the English to be used as hedgerow fencing.
But it took over. It was another importation. So like, a few people understand the history like ecologically of Australia and New Zealand as like the English showed up and just screwed everything up by importing northern hemisphere species, be they animals or flora, and completely messing up the natural environments of those two places, right? And I
Yeah.
think gorse and possums were the two big criminals in New Zealand.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are, mate. Yeah, and now red deer are a plague problem now.
Really?
So anyone listening loves their hunting, come to New Zealand. You can shoot as many as you like.
Right. Okay. So you'll see this hat that I'm wearing. I mentioned my mate Chris from Kentucky, and he gave me this hat from the trucking outfit he works for out of Minnesota called Autumn Transport. And they
Yeah.
gave me the like blaze orange hunter's cap.
Yeah.
Where I live in upstate New York and next door in Pennsylvania, lots of people like to hunt deer. There's tons of them around. Tell us some more about this deer hunting thing that you're discussing in New Zealand. This is amazing.
Yeah, basically, you can go and hunt deer or pigs, and you got 12 months of the year you can do it. probably slows down a bit in the summer because of the heat, and you can
But
take as many as you want.
there's no season and no bag limits.
No, no.
So okay, all of my redneck friends here in the United States, did you hear that? No season and no bag limits. Go to New Zealand and get all the deer you want.
If anything, you just need a permit to get on the land. Like if you're going to hunt a native, so you need to get a permit from DOC. Or if you're going to hunt in pine, you might need to get a permit from the forest owner. But generally, or
Right.
if you know someone that has a farm with a bit of bush on the back, go hard.
Right. So you mentioned the permit from the forestry companies for working on their land. One of the things I remember seeing, so like I spent a bit of time in the Kaingaroa, I drove doubles and stems trucks when I was there. It was great. I had an awesome time. And I noticed that there's like a few creeks and rivers that go through the Kaingaroa, and they would have these little signs about like, you know, the arrangement between the forestry company and the government and DOC was such that like they still had to allow people to access the land, which they should be as citizens of New Zealand. It's their land. But like all you had to do was like get a permit and then you could like go fishing, right? And
Yep.
I remember a few times like driving around on the weekends, occasionally your dad or Sargi or Tony, whoever would say, hey, we got to work on Saturday, move all these logs. And I would drive along and you'd come over a bridge or a culvert or something, and there would be guys fishing. Like trout fishing in New Zealand is a huge
Mm.
thing.
Yeah. You need a
Right.
license for that, and that is seasonal. And there is limits, but I think the limit's like maybe 6 a day, but you can go out every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean six trout will feed like the whole family, and that's no big deal.
Yeah. It's funny
Um,
you drive around Kinleith Forest in the winter, which is the pig hunting season in there. And during the week there's this utes parked up with horse floats and bikes everywhere, push bikes. Yeah.
you'll remember when we were on the ice in the Northwest Territories in Canada that you get the weekend caribou warriors. You get all these guys from Yellowknife come up on the ice and they've got their F-250 or their Dodge pickup in a trailer and a couple of skidoos on the back, and away they go. And then you come back a day or two later, and then the pickup
Mm.
truck is gone, but there's just guts and skin. So like these guys would go out and use the ice road as access for caribou hunting, get their caribou. They would drag them back with the sled to the side of the. You know, these guys would literally leave their pickups. Their $50,000 Dodge 4-wheel drive pickup parked in the middle of a friggin' lake on 3 feet of ice, and you know come back with their caribou, process it right there in the snowbank, and then when they were done, they would leave. But you would come by the following day, and there's all these like Arctic foxes and crows and everybody feeding on the entrails and whatever was left of the caribou, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they do
Cool.
that here too.
Right. But like with so like it's just interesting to me, the whole like invasive species thing, right? Like so there's a bunch of different types of deer in New Zealand that they showed up with, and
Mm.
you can just they just want to get rid of them for some reason.
Not get rid of them outright, not possibly, but yeah, but there's a lot of hunters in New Zealand, so you're still going to need something out there. But there's a forest up the east coast of the North Island that it's a native forest and it's decimated. There's no young trees growing or nothing because the deer are just wiping them out. There's nothing on the ground. It's just dirt.
So the deer are eating all of the fresh buds, the new shoots of what would be a New Zealand native hardwood tree like a totara or a rimu or something like this, and the deer eat it before it even gets a chance to get going.
Yeah, yeah. So those sorts of areas you want to get rid of. Then you got possums as well.
All right.
They're more be feeding off the canopy. But yeah, those sorts of areas you want to get rid of them. let
All
the
right.
forest grow.
I
So they,
remember this. I have these little memory moments, and I'm sure you've had them. You're driving along, you just think about something, but you're by yourself in the truck. You got nobody to talk to. You just have a bit of a laugh. All right. I used to work with this guy. So a couple of years ago, not long after I'd moved to Ithaca, there's this guy Sean I worked with who was the sort of right hand man for this guy named Chris Stoshak I worked with, and he would always shoot me these dirty looks because I would start laughing to myself on a job site, right? Like we're working on some guy's house, and
yeah,
I'm not paying attention to the like radio and he's playing his music or whatever. I'll just start laughing, and he'd be like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm having a memory moment," you know. And one of
yeah.
them, I remember when I finished up working for your dad in Sargison, and Bernadette like had gone to Samoa or something. I don't know. Anyway, I was by myself. I was hitchhiking around the North Island. I hadn't bought that van yet, and I was in Gisborne,
Oh,
which
yeah, yeah.
is east coast of the North Island. There's a bit of forestry out there. They have a port, because a lot. So another little thing about New Zealand is you guys ship a lot of raw logs everywhere.
We do, yeah. Mate, predominantly to China. Yep.
Right. Which is unfortunate because you don't get the value out of actually sawing the timber. But anyway, I'm in Gisborne and I go to this like backpackers hostel. Typical New Zealand day. It's friggin' raining and the weather sucks, whatever. I go around the shops, get some food, go back to this backpackers hostel, and I'm making my dinner. And then this like couple shows up. And the lady is about 5 foot nothing. And then her
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend or dude is like this like massive 6'5" monster of a human being. And we're standing in the hostel, and as you do when you're traveling around and you try and be friendly and tell each other stories and stuff, this humongous bear of a man sticks his arm out to me to shake my hand, and I'm like, all right, nice to meet you. And he says, I am Blaster. I am from Czech Republic. I drink beer. Do you drink beer? That's what the fucking guy says to me. I'll never forget it. I had never met anybody from the Czech Republic before. And I'm at a backpackers hostel in Gisborne in the middle of nowhere in New Zealand. And this fucking dude just like verbally assaults me, asking me if I drink beer. What?
There's the Pope has niece.
Yeah, exactly. So
All good.
what made you decide to go from so last time I was in New Zealand was 2015. So it's been nearly 9 years since I've seen you in the flesh, sir. You're overdue for a visit.
I know.
I've
I know.
I've been to New Zealand 3 times. You've only been to Canada or America once. So it's your turn, dude. Yeah, so you're home. You are working for Sargison. You meet Karen. You have Paigey. Life's going on. You buy this beautiful home in Tauranga, which I've been a guest of.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decide to buy your own truck and become an owner driver. Um,
Yeah.
what drove that decision, and how has it been working out for you? And can you tell my people here about the costs involved about being an owner operator in New Zealand, which I think is going to blow some people's brains away?
Yeah. Huh. Oh, so always wanted to own my own truck, a logging truck, since I was a boy, because I used to spend a lot of school holidays and so forth with my dad, who drove a logging truck, obviously. I just wanted to. Why get to 60 and not have a crack at something that you always wanted to do? So that's what I did. I approached another company about going in with them and mentioned that to my dad, and he said, "Well, why don't you talk to Tony Sargison's about it?" So I caught up with him a day or two later, and he said, "Why don't you come and work here? Come and be an OD for me?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't think you wanted them." He said, "Well, you've worked for me, mate. So I know what you like, and you got a work ethic there, and you've helped me. So yeah, I'll give you a go. And it was October, I think. He said, well, I'm rebuilding that old Kenworth out the back there. When that's up and running, why don't you buy that off me? So yeah, okay. So I did. So February, March the following year, which was 2018, I bought the secondhand truck and trailer off them, and it was already in fleet colors and so forth. So
Was this one of the
well,
cab overs?
yeah, an old K108, yeah, cab over, twin steer with a 4-axle trailer behind it. So I bought that off them for 220 grand or something like that, and away I went. Yeah, that
Right.
was.
But and now that's 2018. So now it's 2024. What are you
Yeah,
driving?
so
What are you driving now? You're on another truck.
yeah, so it's probably about 2020 type of work I was doing. I was going out into the middle of nowhere, and I'd had a few issues with the old 108, so I decided to replace it with a new truck. And there was only one brand that I wanted. And it was Kenworth, which were built in Australia. So hence began the process of getting a new truck. So I ended up with a T610, which is, I think, equivalent to a 660 over there, T660, roughly. So I purchased one of those, twin steer 8-wheeler, what we call them 8-wheelers, and set that up to cart logs, spec'd it with what I wanted, and got it built, and just repainted my old trailer and put that behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember you sent me some photos. You were invited. So Kenworth recently celebrated their 100th anniversary of building trucks, or was it Cummins? Or both of
Kenworth.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah, their birthdays are somewhat similar or close. So you were invited. So the main Kenworth dealer in New Zealand is in Auckland, and they're called South Pac Trucks, which is short for South Pacific.
The
And
only the only Kenworth dealer in New Zealand. They
only
got
Kenworth, yeah.
the
And
only
you they had a big show here recently, to which I believe you were invited, and you brought your own rig.
I didn't take my truck to the show,
No, you
but I did.
didn't. Oh shit! I remember you sent me a picture of you and Karen standing in front of one of Sargie's trucks.
Yeah, we went to the function that night, but I didn't enter my truck into the show. No,
Right. I was gonna say they probably had a few.
I didn't want to wash it, so
Man, there was a so I remember, this is another story. I love this shit. So when I was doing the afternoon shift for Sargison, 20 years ago, 02, 03, and one of your guys had a what did you call it, with the truck and trailer unit that was like a deck, but like the bolsters would fold down into it so you could haul logs or cut timber.
log deck.
A log deck. So
Yeah.
one of your fellows that had a log deck, I got sent out into the woods to like put a load of logs on it and get the guy ready for an on cart for the next morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And oh, dude, it was one of these Maori fellows that worked for Sargison that was a real character. He had so many working for them, and I got stuck. So what happened was I got to the landing and they loaded me, and there was this like real tight left hand curve to get out, and
Mm-hmm.
I just got too close to the bank, and I like stuffed it down into the mud. And because I was like younger, and I got on the radio and I was a little bit loud about it, and everybody in the forest heard about it, and they were all laughing at me. Anyway, they came and they got the loader and they did the thing. They pushed me out and I got going. It was only a delay of about half an hour. It was not that big of a deal, but like
Yeah.
it was just a mess. It was just there's like there's fucking mud up inside the rims, down the whole passenger side of the truck and trailer. I didn't break anything. I didn't hurt anything. It was just fucking completely covered in mud. So I get back to Rotorua, and it was so late. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and old mate was gonna come in and like hop on and go. I didn't have time to wash it. And man, did I not get like they bugged me for weeks. Like, oh, he's fucking making a mess of our trucks, bro, and you don't even have the fucking guts to clean them off for us? What's the matter with you? Fucking stupid. They used to call me George Bush. All the guys on the forestry radio, because it was '02 and '03 and the war in Iraq was starting, you know, these Maori fellas just thought I sounded like George Bush, even though I don't have an accent from Texas, but because that was the political vibe of the day. oh, George Bush coming down to New Zealand to do some logging, bro. And they would just laugh at me all the time, It was hilarious.
Oh, we had another nickname for you too. Greatest American hero.
And the Tregalis Terror, one of the dispatchers. Oh, God, what was his name?
Nigel.
Yeah, Bluffton. He was another Nigel Bluffton. That's right. Yeah, because I think I mangled it and called it Tregowitz or something, which is this mill in Tekawiti.
He used to say to me, because I was in the dispatch office with him, oh, here's your mate Gordon going to Tregowitz.
Oh, it's funny. We're all speaking the same language, but we couldn't talk to each other. Yeah. Yeah. I loved it. No, man, I honestly I had like some of the best times of my life when I was in New Zealand. I got this so I got a mate. So you remember my cousin Ryan, who I think you met? Yep. He's got a mate who's also named Ryan Wolojnik. I'm gonna send this to him once I've recorded it to him. I haven't talked to him in ages. So I'm gonna send it to him. So Wolojnik went on this like sort of backpacker tour, and he ends up in New Zealand. And he told me and Wolojnik are in Edmonton, like after one of the ice road seasons, and like you'd already gone home, and I was telling him about you, and Wolojnik says to me, he's like, oh yeah, I remember when I went to New Zealand, I went to this town called Tikawiti. I'm like, oh, you mean Tekawiti? And he goes, yeah. He's like, there's a statue of a sheep in the middle of town, and I got drunk and started humping it, and all these guys wanted to beat me up. My only connection to Tekawiti is going to the little sawmill there south of town,
Yeah, it's too funny. Funny that those two sawmills in Tikawiti that we're just talking about, they're both ex-native sawmills that have adapted to cutting pine. So those mills have been there forever.
Really?
Like the finish. Yeah.
I remember sometimes, so when I worked for for Sargison, I did a bit of time in the Conroe off highway doing the doubles and stems and all that, and I also drove a highway truck. New Zealand, even the truck drivers are not immune to the Antipodean pastime of drink driving, as you might call it.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of drivers at Rotorua Forest Haulage who got knocked out of the game because they got busted drink driving. Yeah. And I would have to drive their trucks for them while they awaited going to court to like get their licenses back. There was a guy, there was like I think he was like a Maori or half Maori or something, this fellow named Trevor. And I drove his truck for a bit. It was a cab over Kenworth. And he had a 3-axle trailer instead of a quad. And for whatever reason, while I was driving his truck, they would send me to Tregalis all the time. And that's what started this whole Tregalis terror thing by Mr. Bluffton.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So another thing, I want you to comment on something, Nigel. I know you're a white guy, but America's all tuned up on identity politics and racial fucking bullshit, and I think it's garbage. But at the same time, we're all different people. And New Zealand, I always tell people that like when I was in New Zealand, I really respected the Maori guys because they work their asses off out in the bush. You'd meet these guys that like work at landings or in the log yard at Kawarau or Murupara or wherever,
Yeah.
know, out in the fucking rain and the cold and running a chainsaw all day. Like that's hard work. And
Yeah.
the Maoris, there's just something about like the relationship between the English settlers in New Zealand and the indigenous folks, the Maoris, that went differently. You know, the Americans and the Canadians like basically killed most of them off. Same with the Australians. The America and Canada has this like reserve system, and there's just all this bad vibes that like echo through history and continue to this day. But like in New Zealand, you know, maybe I'm optimistic. Maybe I'm a little bit like bright eyed because I'm not a Kiwi, but perhaps you can clarify this. To my mind, the relationship between white New Zealanders, Pakeha, as Maoris call you, and the Maori people was just different and it was better in a way. Like Maori people seem to be like more integrated. You can go to school and learn the Maori language.
Mm-hmm.
The Maori guys work their asses off. Most of them that I ever met, like I don't know what am I missing?
No, I think we've had our differences in the past, like with the Maori land wars that happened with between the English and the Maori, which was going on at the same time as the American Civil War. I think because the English couldn't defeat them, and we have a document called the Treaty of Waitangi, which was
That's bourbon, sir. Bourbon. This is Kentucky fucking bourbon, but made here in upstate New York. I'm having a little tipple here. Carry on.
um yeah, I think this the way it panned out was that we sort of learned to live together and work together and play together. And don't get me wrong, we still have our differences today, but it's like just life goes on. Yeah, I don't know how to put it really.
So, another infamous Kiwi who's been on my show, who's a mutual friend of ours, Gavin Smith.
Yeah.
Um, when I spoke with Gavin, I think we discussed a little bit about this, and I think he was a little bit like your previous prime minister Jacinda Ardern comes into some criticism from me about other things, but Gavin had told me, and I can't remember if he said this on the podcast or separately, but he and Francie had a real, you know, they did not appreciate how the Ardern government had like driven this wedge between white New Zealanders and Maori New Zealanders by like trying to like rename places under Maori names and like just there was a sort of like, as you mentioned it, like we're all getting along, and somehow the Ardern government had like upset the apple cart with this.
Yeah. Yeah, they had done, yeah. Um, they just forced it upon us. And then I have no issue with bilingual names of towns and so forth. There's a few other things they did too. Some statues removed, Captain Cook or whoever.
Oh, they did that?
That's yeah.
Oh, are you
Probably
fucking kidding?
probably more to do with the councils than anything else. But
Oh man.
it was yeah. It's just the way they went about it. We're going to change every road sign in New Zealand, for example. And it's like, well, why change a road sign if it doesn't need changing? Like, why physically spend the money to change the name on a road sign when it doesn't need changing? Okay, so that road sign gets hit by a truck, for example, and it's munted, and then change it, but not just change it for the sake of changing it. If you get what I mean?
Yeah. They did
Yeah.
this.
So that
They did this in the city of Toronto. Um, one of the main east-west streets through downtown Toronto was named after some English guy named Dundas, or maybe it was Scottish. I don't know. Anyway, there was a big brouhaha a couple of years ago about this, where they were going to rename Dundas Street. I don't even know what the hell the name of it's called now.
Oh,
And they did it. They did it in Ottawa too. There's a parkway that uh, runs along the Ottawa River, which forms the sort of natural border between the province of Ontario and Quebec. And the city of Ottawa sits on the south side of the river, and Quebec's on the other side, Hull and Gatineau and all that. And anyway, this road was called Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. And I think Macdonald was like the first prime minister of Canada. And they renamed it because, like, you know, old white guy did something we don't like, so fuck him. And they renamed it something else. And it's just like, man, I get it. You know, there's some value in like honoring the indigenous people here, but the way these guys are going about it just strikes me as misguided.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Some instances I see where they're coming, but I I believe that you can't forget the history of like New Zealand, Canada, America, whatever. But also, you also have to remember that we are here too. Like we have a culture, probably very distant from English culture, but in a way still have a bit of those, few of those values.
Right.
So you just can't forget. Okay,
For better or
okay,
for worse.
yeah, for better for worse, but you can't forget where you're from. If you know what I mean.
Right.
Like I have ancestry from England, Scotland, and Ireland. You can't forget that. And I just think sometimes they sort of do, if you know what I mean. Yeah, like we have plenty of places with Maori names and so forth, which is awesome. But you can't forget the other side of the coin.
Right. And and
We are
and
here.
and and, and in reverse too, right? Like one of the things I really liked, and like you'll remember when you first met me, like my hair was a bit short, and I started growing it long, and then I started trying to have dreadlocks. And I had dreadlocks for a few years. And part of that was like in honor of all these Maori guys. Like there's like a cultural aesthetic with certain Maori men to have dreadlocks.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of tattoos. There's this thing where like people try and copy Maori tattoos, which is actually kind of like it's sort of taboo. It's not kosher. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
um a lot of Maori tattoos, there's like an intellectual copyright, for lack of a better word. You know,
yeah,
that's their thing, and I didn't want to try and copy that. And I'm not. I don't have any tattoos or piercings, but like I grew my hair long and started doing dreadlocks, and part of it was in honor of like all these like really tough, hard as nails Maori guys I worked with that I thought were cool as shit and all had dreads.
mm,
You know, and you know the historical stuff goes in a couple of different directions with that, you know. And a lot of the Maori guys, like, you know, Jimmy from Congaroa Village
yep,
and Dalton Gates, peace be upon his memory, and all these like Maori guys I worked with there, they were just so nice to me. They were
yeah,
welcoming. Dalton re-taught me how to drive a truck. I never touched an 18 speed until I got in a truck with Dalton.
no, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like I I drove a 10 speed for paddocks. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And like, you know, these fucking Maori guys were like nice as shit to me. And then, you know, who was that fellow they called Crash? Oh man. I don't even remember what his real name is, but there was a dude called Crash and he worked for somebody else, not Sargison. And I was at like a landing somewhere
yes,
and I remember hearing his name on the radio and there was a couple of us waiting in line to get loaded. And I says to him, I says, "Hey mate, you know, like, well, why do they call you Crash?" And then he says to me, he goes, "Well, you know, I crashed a truck." I said, oh, "Okay, well that happens sometimes. Why does it stick to you?" And he says, "Well, you know, I got out, and then they sent me to truck driving school, and My brothers got me this job driving logging trucks, and I crashed once. So they call me Crash. I said, well, what do you mean your brothers? Like, what do you mean you were inside? Like, I'm 23 and I've no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Didn't pick up on it. And he says, well, no, I was inside, like I was in jail. Oh, well,
Oh, yeah.
I says to him, I says, what'd you do? He says, well, I killed some cunt. Like, what? And then he tells me this story about like how his brothers, I don't know if he was Mongrel Mob or one of the other gangs. And they told him to kill somebody and he did it. And he did 10 years. And when he got out of jail, they got him a job driving logging trucks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
I had a beer with him one night, at the rugby club, playing a team from Murupara. Yeah. I can't remember if he was playing or I knew him. I knew him at the point through work.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good bugger off. Crash, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen him for years. I don't even know where he is nowadays. Probably
Yeah.
retired.
Yeah, who knows? There were so many good guys. And then another time there was somebody in the Congaree off highway that had this like big blue Pacific that towed a set of doubles. Okay. And it was owned by one of these like small conglomerates of like 3 or 4 owner drivers that got together to be part of the like, the whatever forestry clan. And anyway, same thing. I'm waiting in line to get loaded. And the fellow driving this old blue Pacific Maori guy, he says, oh, hey, Gordon, come up to my truck, mate. I got a little something for you. So anyways, I walk up to his truck, and in front of the passenger seat on the floor, he's got like one of these 5-gallon plastic buckets, I guess 20 liters. And he'd gone out on Sunday and picked pippies and cockles and stuff out of the ocean, kai moana, the whole like the Maori notion of like getting your food from the ocean, right? And he says, oh, here you go, mate. Here, have some cockles. And he gets his knife out and starts slitting them open and just hands them to me. Like fresh seafood, like not cooked, nothing, just right out of the shell. And we just stood there and had a feed for smoko, which is another smoko, this term from New Zealand about having a break,
Australia. I think it comes from the shearing sheds when they used to stop for lunch. They'd have a cup of tea and a bite sandwich or something and a durry or a cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, this Maori fellow that drove an old Pacific hauling doubles in the bush. Just here you go, man. Check this out. I picked these out of the ocean on Sunday. Have a feed,
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget the sort of like hospitality and warmth that was expressed towards me by all these Maori guys down there. They were just like friendly as shit. And, they would make fun of me and call me George Bush and all this garbage, but like, whatever. It was just fun, I had such a good time down there. I loved all those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was working in All
right, you're back.
You think?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had to take some medication.
No. What's the matter with you? Is this to do with your like kidney stuff from before?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. I just had to have my immune suppressants.
Oh shoot. Well, what do you mean by immune suppressants?
Because I got a kidney transplant. So my body wants to reject it because it's like a foreign body inside me. So what they've done is, when I was in Auckland Hospital, I had a case of rejection. So they basically fried my white blood cells in my bone marrow. So I'm not producing any immunity. And so they suppress that now so it doesn't come back with medication. So therefore my body won't reject my kidney.
So yeah. So
yeah.
So this means you have to take other stuff to replace what's been crushed by this medication?
I have to take other stuff to keep it crushed. Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, son of
Yeah.
a bitch.
So I have no immune system, so I probably wouldn't have partaken in kaimawana from a bucket in the cab of a truck because the food poisoning
Oh man.
kill me.
Oh.
So I have to be pretty careful on. They told me I just have to eat like a pregnant woman. There you go. So hard eggs, etc., etc.
So does that mean no more Waikatos either?
No, I still have a few beers. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's your living, mate. That's fine.
Well, it's as fine for as well as you treat it.
Yeah, I don't go overboard.
Yeah,
A few beers here and there, a few gins. Yeah.
Hey, pardon the difficulties. We'll get right back to you. In the meantime, enjoy this hit from a long gone New Zealand rock band who were a staple of every jukebox at every little country pub around. Here's the Dudes. and then matched with the insanity of the last couple of years after the troubles that all the world seemed to have got. Canada and New Zealand sharing equally despotic governmental regimes, which made uh, bad things worse. Um, who's this?
Yeah.
Who's running the show in New Zealand now that Jacinda Ardern's fucked off to go and be a globalist? Who's the guy
Gosh.
now?
Well, National are running the show now. So Christopher Luxon is our Prime Minister. He seems
So
to be doing all right at the moment, considering we've got no money.
so before, hey, remind me about something here because certain things get erased from history because we don't talk about them. Or it's not that we don't,
Yeah.
it's that the powers that be don't. The guy
Mhm.
who ran New Zealand for a while before Jacinda Ardern came along and stepped down when he was at the top of his game. Oh, was it Kerr or Kay or John? What was that guy's name?
John Key, yeah.
John
John Key,
Key.
yeah.
He was like a
Yeah.
steady as you go. We're not gonna like do anything wrong. We're just gonna like kind of let things be as they are. He was pretty good from what I understand.
Yeah. He was, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's still around. He's not a politician anymore, but I think he just sort of commentates on a few things that are going on around in the world and in particular with New Zealand.
Right.
He was in the media on the paper not long ago. He made a comment about something. I can't remember what it was now, but no, he's still around.
But all in all though, like he wasn't a bad guy. Like he was steady as she goes, you know?
No, it was good. Yeah, he was a businessman, so he was running the country like a business, so to speak, in which no Luxem is as well. Yeah, so got a Labor government that came in and put all these people into jobs, which is good, jobs. But what are you doing, mate? You're working for the government, but what are you actually doing? And now the Nationals come along and said, well, you're doing fucking nothing, so we might as well let you go. At the moment, they're sort of restructuring everything and probably
Whatever happened to Uncle
letting.
Winston?
Oh, he's still around. Yeah,
Winston
still
Peters.
around.
How is he like 100 years old now or what?
Well, if he ain't, mate, he definitely looks it. I think there's a bar not far from Parliament in Wellington. I think he partakes in a few beverages after a day in the office there in Wellington, and maybe step outside for a couple of durries while he's at it.
Right. No, he's a little bit like Nigel Farage there in the UK.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But Winston's been around
yeah.
forever. He was a political operator when I was there 20 years ago.
Winston, yeah, he's
Yeah.
been around a while. It's 70s, I think he first got into Parliament.
Jeez, he's older than
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's been in, yeah, he's been around a while, old Winnie. I think he's the type of politician though that keeps the balance between, or tries to anyway, balance keeps things right between Māori and Pākehā in a way.
All right.
Not afraid to just speak his mind on things. Yeah,
You need that occasionally. Even when the temperature is unnecessarily high and there's confusion and people don't know which way to go. You need a fellow like Winston Peters around, you know?
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Uncle
yeah.
Winston.
So, Uncle
Yeah,
Winston. It's him.
he reminds me of this.
Yeah.
He reminds me of this fellow that was the premier of Alberta for a bit, and I think he passed on not long after you were here. His name was Ralph Klein. Um,
Oh yeah.
Ralph was the premier of Alberta for I don't know how many years, but like he took no shit, spoke his mind, got the budgets balanced. He was like economically literate, understood what worked and what didn't. Maybe a little bit
Yeah.
of a maybe like Uncle
Oh, yeah.
Winston spent a little bit too much time at the pub.
And you need them people around, don't you?
Yeah, but my friend Oliver wrote this article about Ralph recently, and it was a bit of a time warp because I remember when I was visiting my
Oh, you still
auntie.
there?
Yep, yeah, we're getting cut off a bit here by Zoom. I was visiting my aunt Renee and Uncle Gordon, the guy I was named after, in Edmonton. This is a couple of years before. I think this is before I even went to New Zealand, so this would have been like 2001.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was out in Edmonton visiting those guys, trucking, for paddocks,
Yeah.
and Uncle Gord and Auntie Irini took me out. We went to this pub down on White Ave, and um, my Auntie Irini said, beers are on King Ralph. We got Ralph bucks. We got this tax rebate from the government. So
Oh,
they'd got these checks because King Ralph had like balanced everything and said, you guys can have your money back. And they gave out all these checks to everybody in Alberta. And my Auntie Irini like
oh.
shouted me tea and some beers.
What's up?
Oh, this is twice now you've cut out. I might have to leave this in for color. Um,
Oh, what's wrong with the old dial-up telephone?
yeah. Oh, it's New Zealand, mate. It's like one of the things about New Zealand that people in North America and other parts of the world need to understand is that like you're down the bottom of the South Pacific. You're a distant outpost of the British Empire for a long time.
Yeah.
Hard to get things there, expensive to get things there. And there's this concept called Kiwi ingenuity where you just like work with what you got.
Number 8 wire. Yep.
Yep. And that I think that inclination uh is it's imbued in the way a certain type of New Zealander acts and presents themselves. It's very matter of fact, very like straightforward, no bullshit. We need to get something done, and we don't have all the proper equipment and resources to do it, and we have to figure it out on our own. And it engenders a certain thought process that doesn't map onto the modern 21st century spreadsheet brain bullshit managerialism that we see in other parts of the world. Although that reflects and does affect New Zealand, and I mean that's how you end up with fucking idiots like Jacinda Ardern in Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think a lot of people can learn from that. The Kiwi ingenuity part of the New Zealand cultural uh, experience, as it were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
I really
Well, you,
respect that about you guys. Like, I like I always tell people two of my best friends are Kiwis, like you and Gavin. You know,
yeah.
um, and that's it's not entirely just because like we hung out for so long, but like there's something about you guys I really admire, and something about New Zealand and the culture in New Zealand I think is really valuable. Um, there's this young lady, younger sister of a mate of mine here in Ithaca. I'm not gonna name her or dox her or anything, but anyway, um, she went to university here in America and did an exchange thing in New Zealand and got a 1 year working holiday visa. And she spent some time in Wanaka. and she only used up about 6 months of her visa. And I was asking her like if she's going to go back, and she's like, "Oh no, it's a bit boring."
Oh
And I
yeah. Yep.
and I said, "Well, I get it. There's parts of Kiwi culture that are boring because like you guys work so hard. You all get up really early in the morning, even the cockies, and like there's like a sort of like Protestant work ethic thing that imbues culture in New Zealand, but at the same time, like I'm like, is that all you took away from your trip down there? Like, did you not interrogate Kiwi culture more while you were there? I think there's a lot more to it, and I don't think New Zealand culture gets enough respect in the rest of the world. I mean, obviously, whatever, you're only 5 million people, this far flung outpost of the UK, but like there's just something about like the spirit of people down there that expresses itself in ways that are not visible to the internet spreadsheet brain managerial system that runs the world nowadays. And you guys have got something there that's primal.
Oh, yeah. I think we're pretty laid back, quite a humble people where we sort of don't need to fricking brag about everything that we do. If you know
No,
what I
that's
mean?
true. That's true, and I'm doing it for you. I'm bragging for you because
I know. She obviously didn't get around much, did she?
no, she wasn't hauling a pulp through rear Kafaitu or
Yeah.
hang, hanging out down the pub down in Murrapara or something.
She probably should have ventured up the west coast there of the South Island and got herself a possum pie. That might have changed her mind on things.
Yeah, down the brewery down the Monteiths or something.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
All right. It's
Yeah,
not, yeah. I don't know.
well,
So the thing about like traveling and cultural exchange, and throughout this conversation, I've had to like, hey, Nigel means this, and this is what it means in America. And it seems slight, and it seems like, well, we're all speaking English, so it doesn't matter. But there are differences in things, and there are
yeah,
differences in culture, and there are differences in how people roll, even within something that as its root is like an Anglo thing, right? Like New Zealand is like English and Captain Cook and all that shit, and
yeah,
Canada and America are somewhat similar, but there are differences, and I think in those differences we can learn things from one another. And
yeah,
I've always had this like special place in my heart for Kiwis since I've been down there, because like you guys just roll on your own thing, but again, because you're modest and you don't brag and whatever, these parts of the New Zealand psyche and Kiwi ingenuity and stuff, I think people should learn from. That's why
yeah.
I want you on my show, A, because you're my friend and we all track, and I'm looking forward to talking to this guy from the Coromandel who's a fucking freak, and I'll have to get Gavin. I'll have to get Gavin back on again.
Yeah.
Have you been to visit Gavin since he's moved down to Martin?
No, I haven't, mate. I haven't. I've been useless. Yeah.
Don't make me reach across the globe and fucking beat you with a tire and tell you to get to it.
Well, I still thought until recently, I thought he still lived in. Well, for a couple of years ago, I thought he still lived in Pyro.
No, he's in Martin.
Yeah. Actually, I think. Funny story. There's an overpass there in Martin, just above the State Highway 1, which is like the main trunk line for us through the middle of the country. And there's it's a rail bridge. It's quite low, and there's a bypass for it for high loads. Anyway, my mate's young fella, he had a load of tractors on coming up. I think it was going down to Wellington actually, or a wheel loader. And he asked if the height was all right, and he said it was dispatcher said, "Yeah, no, you'll be right. You'll be right." Yeah, well, it wasn't.
Okay, hold on. I gotta turn the video back on here. Hold on a minute.
Oh, hello.
Hey, Viv. Say good day to Nigel.
Hi, Nigel.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Hold on 1 second there, Vivian.
Oh, he's gonna get Paige. Maybe he's gonna get Paigey to come say hello. Yeah, I'm gonna get Viv to talk to Nigel and maybe Paige here. He's just disappeared. Hold on a minute.
Daddy, why is this there?
Hi, Georgia.
I want to say hi, Nigel.
All right, here we go.
Oh,
Hey, Viv, can you say good day to Paige?
Hi, Faye.
what are you guys up to today?
My friend's over.
Oh,
Hey, this is Georgia. This is Georgia. Lean in, Georgia.
Hi, Teacher.
hello.
Nope,
She's gone.
Georgia, come back. All right.
She's out of here. They're
So
both
much
gone.
so much for that. Well, their little friend Amalia is here, so that's more important than hanging out with Dad by his computer. G'day,
Yeah.
Paige. G'day, Paige. How's things?
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good.
She's got out of bed. I just pulled her out of bed.
Right.
Dang
So
it.
what is it? About 7:30 in New Zealand on Sunday?
No, it's 25 past 8, nearly 8:30.
Oh, okay. Oh, we've been going for a while.
You
Couple
go.
hours. Couple hours. Yeah, I gotta go here. My wife is home now. She was out with the kids. I got a couple of friends over. We're gonna have a little fire in the backyard and
Nice, nice.
yeah. So
I
anyway,
hope it wasn't too boring for your podcast.
no, hell no, brother. I appreciate your time. It's been taking us a little while to get this together. I love
Catch up
it.
really between you and I, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were overdue.
Yeah.
I want to say a shout out while we're here before we wrap up. A mutual friend of ours, Jamie Gravel, we worked with up on the ice in the Northwest Territories. We didn't talk too much about that, but that's okay. Maybe another time. Maybe we'll come back.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, Jamie, I love you, brother. And I hope you figure it out and give me a call one of these days. I'm gonna send this to you. And Nigel says good day. And oh, what's that box, babe? What you got in there? Oh, is that oil or gin?
It's oil for me.
Gin.
Oh man. Oh, g'day, Karen. Nice to see you.
How do you do?
Good morning.
You right?
Oh, I'm right. Yeah, GM from GM. Are you gonna have your wheat Bix and your instant coffee or what?
Yeah, of course.
Instant coffee. Oh yeah. We're getting with the modern world, mate. Here in New Zealand, we got an espresso machine.
Oh boy, wow.
Yeah.
I've become a coffee snob myself. I make what they call cold brew. I have my own coffee bean grinder and I put it in mason jars, glass jars, and then just dump water in out the tap and let it sit for a day or two and then put it in a French press and boil it in the stove.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as having a percolator, but like it's a longer time frame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hard to do when you're on the road, but I did it when I was in Australia. We should have another chat one of these days. After you've watched the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team, I don't know what happened to them here this morning. Apparently, you slept in.
Yeah. I wasn't going to get up to watch them, really.
Yeah. Well, we won.
Just, wasn't it?
Yeah. 22-24. It was a good game. I was watching it while we spoke.
Oh Oh man, there's so much more we could have discussed. The All Blacks, Tawny Mahuta.
Yeah. Yeah, here's one for you, mate. I know you probably won't know, or for your listeners won't care, but the Black Caps, the New Zealand cricket team, won a series in India last week.
Oh, good.
Test series, which we haven't done there since 1988, I think.
Right.
And I think the time someone beat India in India was in 2012, and it was England or Australia.
Right, good. Oh man, Ricky Ponting, the famous Australian cricketer.
Tired now, but yeah.
Oh, dude. So there's this like weird issue in Canada with like this could be another podcast, but like the Canadian government has decided that half of India can move to Canada now. And no offense to the Indians, it's caused a lot of trouble.
Aye.
But I remember talking with Indians at the truck stop in Edmonton and various places about cricket. And the name Ricky Ponting always came up. Like even the fucking Indians realize that the Australians are better than them at cricket. They always say Ricky Ponting.
Don't go there. No, they're
All
pretty
right,
good.
all right, man. You got any final words? If like this show is about trucking and truckers and all other things, if there's anything you wanted to say to the truckers of North America as a Kiwi log hauler, what would you like to say?
I got told a very important thing, which I still go with today, and that is if you're going into a corner and it says 65, hit it at 65 or below, because then there's no chance of a rollover. There you go.
Right. Keep her all up on the shiny side.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it takes you all day to get there, it takes you all day. Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah. I've been put in touch with some people that are connected to JD Vance, the vice presidential nominee under Mr. Trump, who's may or may not win next week. But I'm hoping to share similar wisdom with the people in charge here in America. And I appreciate that very much, Nigel. Thanks for coming on. We should do this again, even if we don't record it. We just have a yarn and let the kids talk. And hey, look, here's Jenna.
Hey, where do I?
Oh, hey.
I have to get in.
Hi.
I have to get in there. Hi.
Speak into the microphone.
Hello. Disappearing.
She just got back from town. We're about 8 miles out in the woods from Ithaca,
Nice.
but
Nice.
I've been to New Zealand 3 times now. You owe me one, mate. It's 3-1.
It's
You
we have to do it.
You might have to park that truck and come on over.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Are you on Facebook or anything at all? Do you do any social media?
I am on Facebook. I don't put anything up.
If anybody was on Facebook and tried to locate you, how would they do it? You don't even know.
Just look up Nigel Frost, I suppose. It's me. Yeah.
All right, send me the link later and I'll put it in the show notes. Whatever. You're too busy driving trucks, not talking about them, which is good. You're a real one, bro.
Yeah, I don't know much about social media stuff.
Yeah,
Anyway.
no, it's all bullshit. Who cares? Yeah. So, tell your brother Malcolm and Donna and Basil I said g'day.
Yep,
And
we'll do that.
we're gonna have to do this again. The Kiwi and North America connection.
Likewise to your family, mate. To your dad, Lord Leonard.
Oh, Leonard. So before we go, I'm gonna do a podcast with this guy named Oliver Bateman, who's a buddy of mine here in America, a writer, and his father was a very interesting guy that looms large in his life. And so
Yeah.
me and Oliver are gonna do a podcast about dads, about our dads and about being dads.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Interesting.
that's coming up soon. I think you'll like it. And then I was supposed to do one with Leonard at his new trailer up near Sudbury that he bought. And he asked me to come up and help him build this deck, this like decking around his thing. And we got so busy doing that we never recorded anything. So I owe one to Leonard. We'll get to you, Dad. We'll
Is he
get to
living
you.
up there?
No. Just only part time. He's kind of semi-retired, a little bit like Basil.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He still does stuff on the road for paddocks, but like couple months here, couple months there.
Aye.
He's gonna be 70 next year, and he's a bit tired.
Oh, sweet. No, cool.
All right, mate. Oh, hey, man. I really appreciate this. Kia ora. And once I get it out, I'll send it to you right away. And
Yes.
Kiwi logging truckers supremacy for the win.
Yeah. Oh, good, man. Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
All right.
Again soon, eh?
Yeah. I'm gonna use a bunch of your photos to go with the show and all that. And
We'll see you a few, boy.
right. All right, man. Way of the road.